The story of Jesus' final hours has been told for nearly 2,000 years, yet it continues to capture the hearts of millions around the world. Every generation returns to these events because they are not simply historical moments. They are the foundation of the Christian faith. That is exactly why anticipation for The Chosen Season 6 has reached an entirely new level. While previous seasons followed Jesus' ministry across many months and locations, this season takes a completely different approach. Rather than covering a broad period of time, it focuses almost entirely on one single day, the final day before Jesus is crucified. That creative decision immediately sets Season 6 apart from everything the series has done before. Instead of rushing through the final events of Jesus' life, the story slows down and allows every conversation, every decision, and every moment of silence to unfold naturally. Viewers are invited to experience the increasing tension hour by hour, watching as the road to the cross becomes inevitable. According to creator Dallas Jenkins, nearly the entire season takes place during the night, a choice that not only creates a darker visual atmosphere, but also closely reflects the gospel accounts. The betrayal in Gethsemane, Peter's denial, the religious trials, and the proceedings before the Roman authorities all unfolded under the cover of darkness. By filming much of the season overnight, the production seeks to place viewers inside that same unsettling atmosphere. Dallas Jenkins has also described this as the most emotionally and spiritually demanding season the cast and crew have ever produced. That comes as no surprise when considering the biblical events being portrayed. The Gospel of John, particularly chapters 13 through 19, records some of the most significant moments in Scripture, from the Last Supper and Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, to his arrest, trial, and ultimately his crucifixion. These are not isolated scenes connected only by chronology. Together they form the climax of Jesus' earthly ministry and the fulfillment of his mission. Rather than treating these events as a sequence of familiar stories, Season 6 appears determined to let viewers remain inside every painful step of that journey. The first episode is expected to establish that direction immediately. Instead of opening with action alone, it begins with Jesus standing before those who have already decided his fate. The apostles will struggle to defend him, desperately hoping that reason and truth might prevail. Jesus, however, chooses a different path. He remains remarkably calm, speaking only when necessary, fully aware that no argument could change hearts already committed to rejecting him. His silence is not weakness, nor is it surrender. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows that every event unfolding before him is leading toward the purpose for which he came into the world. Episode 1 therefore promises not only to begin the trial of Jesus, but also to begin the final journey that will ultimately lead to Calvary. Many people think of Jesus' trial as a single courtroom scene that quickly led to his crucifixion. But the gospel accounts reveal that it unfolded through a series of hearings, each one bringing him another step closer to the cross. Before he ever stood before Pontius Pilate, Jesus was first questioned by the Jewish religious authorities. Episode 1 appears ready to follow that sequence carefully, allowing viewers to witness each stage of the trial, rather than compressing everything into a single dramatic moment. Everything begins immediately after Jesus is arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. Only moments earlier, he had prayed to the Father, willingly submitting himself to the Father's will despite knowing the suffering that lay ahead. He does not resist those who come to arrest him. He does not attempt to escape. Instead, he allows himself to be taken away, fully aware that the events now unfolding are leading toward the sacrifice he came into the world to accomplish. From the garden, Jesus is brought before Annas. Although Annas is no longer serving as the official high priest, he remains one of the most influential religious figures in Jerusalem. His authority still carries enormous weight, and many of the leaders involved in Jesus' trial continue to look to him for guidance. This first hearing therefore serves as an informal interrogation before the official proceedings begin. Rather than seeking an honest understanding of Jesus' ministry, Annas questions him about his disciples and his teachings, searching for information that could later be used as evidence against him. Jesus responds with remarkable composure. He reminds Annas that his ministry has never been conducted in secret. Throughout his public life, he taught openly in synagogues, in the temple courts, and before large crowds. Thousands of people had heard his words with their own ears. If the authorities genuinely wanted to know what he had taught, They only needed to question those who had listened to him. His answer exposes the weakness of the interrogation itself. There is no hidden conspiracy to uncover because everything Jesus proclaimed had been spoken publicly from the very beginning. Instead of responding with reason, one of the guards strikes Jesus across the face. It is a brief but deeply significant moment. Before any formal verdict has been reached, violence has already replaced justice. The slap reveals that this hearing is no longer about discovering the truth. The decision to reject Jesus has already been made, and those standing before him have little interest in listening to his defense. If this scene is portrayed with the emotional intensity that The Chosen has consistently delivered, it may become one of the earliest reminders in Season 6 that the path to the cross was marked not only by physical suffering but also by repeated acts of humiliation and injustice. From there, Jesus is led away once again, this time to stand before Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin, where the trial will take an even more decisive turn. After the hearing before Annas, Jesus is taken to Caiaphas, the acting high priest. It is here that the trial reaches its most critical stage within the Jewish religious system. No longer is he facing an informal interrogation behind closed doors. He now stands before the Sanhedrin, the highest council in Israel, made up of the nation's most influential religious leaders. These men were entrusted with preserving the law and guiding the spiritual life of the Jewish people. Yet instead of conducting a fair hearing, they gather with a different objective. Their goal is not to determine whether Jesus is innocent or guilty. They are looking for a legal reason to justify a sentence they have already decided upon. As the proceedings begin, witnesses are brought forward one after another to testify against Jesus. However, their statements quickly begin to fall apart. One accusation contradicts another, details fail to match, and the testimony lacks the consistency required to establish a credible case. The more witnesses they call, the more obvious it becomes that they are struggling to produce convincing evidence. Instead of revealing Jesus' guilt, the hearing exposes the weakness of the accusations themselves. It becomes increasingly clear that the trial is driven by determination rather than truth. Recognizing that the testimony is accomplishing nothing, Caiaphas changes his approach. Rather than relying on unreliable witnesses, he confronts Jesus directly with the question that lies at the heart of the entire conflict. Are you the Messiah? This is no longer about individual accusations or disputed testimony. It is a direct challenge to Jesus' identity. The atmosphere inside the council chamber shifts as every eye turns toward him, waiting for his response. Jesus answers without hesitation. He declares, "You have said so," and then continues with words that leave no doubt about his claim. He tells them that from now on they will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Knowing exactly how those words will be received, Jesus does not soften his message or attempt to protect himself. He speaks with complete certainty, affirming who he is, even though that declaration will immediately be used against him. For Caiaphas, the response is enough. He tears his robes before the council, declaring that Jesus has committed blasphemy. With that dramatic act, the atmosphere changes instantly. The search for evidence is over, and the council moves quickly to pronounce the death sentence. Yet despite reaching their decision, there is one problem they cannot solve. Under Roman occupation, the Sanhedrin does not have the legal authority to execute anyone. If their sentence is to be carried out, they must persuade the Roman governor to approve it. The religious phase of the trial has now come to an end, and the case is about to move from the authority of the temple to the authority of Rome, where an entirely different set of political pressures will determine what happens next. With the religious trial complete, Jesus is taken before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea. At this point, the accusations against him begin to change. Before the Jewish leaders, the focus had been on blasphemy, but that charge would carry little weight in a Roman court. To secure a death sentence, they now present Jesus as a political threat, someone claiming to be a king who could challenge the authority of Caesar. It is a calculated shift, designed to persuade Pilate that executing Jesus is necessary to preserve order. Pilate begins questioning Jesus for himself, asking the central accusation, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answers simply, "You say that I am." It is another measured response, neither defensive nor confrontational. As Pilate listens and observes the man standing before him, he struggles to see the dangerous criminal described by the religious leaders. The evidence does not convince him. Instead, he repeatedly reaches the same conclusion: "I find no fault in him." Unlike those seeking Jesus' death, Pilate appears unconvinced that he has committed any crime deserving execution. Still, Pilate finds himself under increasing pressure. The chief priests are determined to secure a conviction, while the growing crowd demands action. Looking for a way to avoid making the decision himself, Pilate discovers that Jesus is from Galilee, since Galilee falls under the authority of Herod Antipas, who is visiting Jerusalem for the Passover. Pilate sends Jesus to him, hoping the responsibility will pass into someone else's hands. Herod receives Jesus with curiosity rather than concern. He has heard many stories about his miracles and hopes to witness something extraordinary. Instead of approaching the hearing as a search for justice, he treats it almost as an opportunity for entertainment. But Jesus refuses to satisfy that curiosity. Throughout the entire encounter, he remains silent. He performs no miracle, offers no defense, and makes no attempt to impress the ruler standing before him. His silence leaves Herod disappointed and frustrated. Unable to provoke a response, Herod chooses mockery instead. He has Jesus dressed in a royal robe, ridiculing the claim that he is a king, before sending him back to Pilate without issuing any judgment. When Jesus returns, Pilate realizes he can no longer avoid the decision. The responsibility rests with him once again, and the pressure outside the judgment hall continues to grow. The religious leaders refuse to back down. The crowd becomes increasingly vocal, and the tension surrounding the trial reaches a breaking point. Every attempt to resolve the situation peacefully has failed. The next choices Pilate makes will determine the outcome of the entire trial and lead directly to the events that define the rest of the Passion narrative. When Jesus is brought back before Pilate, the Roman governor realizes that every attempt to avoid making a decision has failed. Herod has offered no judgment. The chief priests remain relentless in their accusations, and the crowd outside continues to grow louder. Pilate still believes Jesus has done nothing deserving death, but he is now caught between justice and political pressure. Releasing Jesus risks provoking unrest during Passover, one of the most sensitive times of the year in Jerusalem. Yet condemning an innocent man would violate everything Roman law was meant to represent. It is a dilemma that only becomes more intense with every passing moment. Looking for one final solution, Pilate turns to a Passover tradition. Each year, the governor would release one prisoner chosen by the people. Believing the outcome would surely favor Jesus, Pilate presents the crowd with two names. One is Jesus of Nazareth, a teacher known for healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and proclaiming the kingdom of God. The other is Barabbas, a man widely recognized as a criminal. From Pilate's perspective, the choice seems obvious. Faced with an innocent teacher and a convicted offender, he expects the people to ask for Jesus' freedom. Instead, the opposite happens. Influenced by the religious leaders, the crowd cries out for Barabbas to be released. Again and again, they demand that Jesus be crucified. The contrast could not be more striking. The man who had spent his ministry serving others is rejected, while a known criminal is set free. For Pilate, it is a shocking turn of events. The solution he believed would end the crisis only deepens it, leaving him with even fewer options than before. Before handing Jesus over, Pilate orders him to be scourged. Roman flogging was not a symbolic punishment. It was a brutal form of torture designed to weaken both body and spirit. The soldiers strike Jesus repeatedly, inflicting wounds that leave him covered in blood. But the abuse does not end there. They twist together a crown of thorns and force it onto his head. Placing a purple robe around his shoulders, they mock him with cruel sarcasm, shouting, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Every blow and every insult is meant to ridicule the one who had spoken of a kingdom not of this world. Even after this horrific punishment, Pilate makes one final attempt to persuade the crowd. Once again, he declares that he finds no fault in Jesus, hoping compassion might replace anger. But the cries only grow louder. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Realizing that the situation is spiraling beyond his control, Pilate publicly washes his hands before the people, declaring himself innocent of Jesus' blood. It is a symbolic act meant to distance himself from the sentence that is about to be carried out. Yet despite his own doubts about Jesus' guilt, he ultimately gives in to the demands before him. With that decision, Jesus is handed over to be crucified, bringing the first major chapter of Season 6 to its devastating conclusion. According to the information shared so far, these events will form the heart of Episode 1 and establish the emotional foundation for everything that follows in the rest of the season. According to everything revealed so far, The trial of Jesus and the events leading to his condemnation will occupy much of the opening episode and establish the emotional direction for the entire season. But episode 1 is only the beginning. Beyond the biblical narrative itself, Dallas Jenkins and his team have shared remarkable details about the scale of this production, making it clear that season 6 is unlike anything The Chosen has attempted before. One of the most impressive aspects of this season is the amount of time devoted to filming. Dallas Jenkins has confirmed that season 6 was shot over 86 days, making it the longest production schedule in the history of the series. That is nearly 3 weeks longer than any previous season. Such an extended schedule reflects the extraordinary care being taken to portray the final hours of Jesus with the depth and attention they deserve. These are the defining events of the gospel story, and the production team clearly believes they cannot be rushed. Every conversation, every location, and every performance has been given the time needed to communicate both the historical significance and the emotional weight of the Passion narrative. Filming has taken place across several locations, including North Texas, Utah, and the ancient city of Matera in southern Italy. Among these, Matera carries a particularly powerful significance. Its stone streets and historic architecture have long been associated with biblical films, and it was famously used as the filming location for the crucifixion scenes in The Passion of the Christ. By returning to the same city, The Chosen connects its portrayal of Jesus' final hours with one of the most recognized biblical films ever produced. While the locations alone cannot tell the story, they provide an authentic setting that reinforces the gravity of the events unfolding on screen. The ambition of season 6 extends even further with its finale. Rather than ending the season with a standard television episode, Dallas Jenkins has revealed that the final chapter grew into something much larger during the writing process. As he developed the script, he became convinced that the crucifixion deserved a presentation unlike anything the series had attempted before. He described pouring every ounce of heart, vision, and meaning into the screenplay because he understood he was portraying what he considers the most significant event in human history. When the script was shared with the Come and See Foundation, the nonprofit organization that helps fund The Chosen, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Instead of simply approving the episode, the organization encouraged the team to expand its scope and present it as a full-length theatrical film, allowing audiences around the world to experience the climax of season 6 on the big screen. Such an ambitious vision comes with an equally ambitious cost. Dallas Jenkins has stated that the finale alone is expected to require a budget of approximately $30 million, making it by far the most expensive production in the history of The Chosen. At the time of his announcement, nearly $16 million had already been raised through crowdfunding, demonstrating the extraordinary support the series continues to receive from viewers around the world. Jenkins also expressed his belief that this project is about far more than creating another film. In his view, every contribution helps bring the story of Christ's sacrifice to new audiences in a way that has never before been presented on screen. Whether one agrees with that assessment or not, there is little doubt that Season 6 represents the most ambitious undertaking the production team has attempted since the series first began. The enormous scale of Season 6 is reflected not only in its production budget and filming schedule, but also in the emotional experience of the cast themselves. As the story moves into the final hours of Jesus' earthly ministry, the actors have repeatedly described this season as the most challenging work they have undertaken since the series began. Their comments suggest that portraying these biblical events required far more than memorizing lines or performing difficult scenes. It demanded an emotional and spiritual investment unlike anything they had previously experienced. Jonathan Roumie, who portrays Jesus, has openly spoken about the impact this season had on him. He described it as the most demanding role of his career, not only because of the physical strain involved, but because of the emotional and spiritual burden of portraying Christ's final hours. Filming the crucifixion scenes required long days of physically exhausting work, and Roumie revealed that he lost both weight and muscle during production. Yet he emphasized that the greatest challenge was not physical exhaustion. It was the responsibility of portraying the suffering, sacrifice, and love that defined the climax of the gospel story. Carrying those moments from scene to scene affected him in ways he had never experienced during the previous 5 seasons. For viewers who have followed The Chosen from the beginning, Roumie's comments may not come as a surprise. Over 5 seasons, audiences have watched his portrayal of Jesus develop with increasing depth and maturity. But Season 6 asks something entirely different of him. Rather than teaching, healing, or calling disciples, Jesus now walks knowingly toward the cross. Every conversation carries the awareness that his earthly ministry is nearing its conclusion. According to Roumie, that reality transformed this role from an acting performance into an experience that demanded everything he could give, both emotionally and personally. Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary Magdalene, also reflected on how emotionally difficult these scenes were to film. She explained that watching someone your character deeply loves being tortured, mocked, and ultimately crucified is heartbreaking, even within the controlled environment of a film set. By this stage of the story, Mary Magdalene is no longer simply one of Jesus's followers. Her life has been completely transformed through her encounter with him, making his suffering intensely personal. That relationship gives every scene involving the crucifixion an added emotional weight, both for the character and for the actress portraying her. Abe Bueno Jayad, who portrays Big James, shared a similar perspective after witnessing the filming in Italy. Although he was not required to be on set every day, he admitted that he often returned simply to watch the production because of what was taking place. He described an atmosphere of extraordinary focus among the cast, saying he had never seen the team so completely immersed in their work. According to him, there were moments during filming that genuinely gave him goosebumps. Taken together, the reflections from Roumie, Tabish, and Bueno Jalad paint a consistent picture. For everyone involved, Season 6 represents far more than another chapter in a successful television series. It is the culmination of years spent telling the story of Jesus, and they believe that reality can be felt in every scene they have created. With production now complete, attention has shifted to how The Chosen Season 6 will be released. Just as the creators have expanded the scale of the production, they are also taking a very different approach to bringing these episodes to audiences around the world. Rather than following a traditional television release, the final chapters of Jesus' earthly ministry are being presented in a way that reflects the significance the production team believes these events deserve. According to the information shared so far, Season 6 is scheduled to arrive on Prime Video sometime in 2026. Although an exact release date has not yet been announced. However, the biggest surprise concerns the season finale. Instead of concluding with a standard streaming episode, the final installment depicting the crucifixion of Jesus is planned to receive a full theatrical release on May 12, 2027. That decision represents a major milestone for The Chosen. What began as a crowd-funded television series has grown into a production capable of bringing one of the most important moments in the gospel story to movie theaters around the world. The plans do not end there. The creators have also revealed that the opening chapter of Season 7, focusing on the resurrection of Jesus, is expected to receive its own theatrical release on March 31st, 2028. During Easter weekend. This unique partnership between 5 and 2 Studios and Amazon MGM Studios marks a new chapter for the series, allowing both the crucifixion and the resurrection to be experienced as feature-length theatrical events before continuing on streaming platforms. It is an approach unlike anything previously attempted by the production and reflects the growing confidence surrounding the global impact of the series. Members of the cast have expressed their excitement about this unconventional strategy. Abe Bueno Jalad remarked that one of the things he appreciates most about being part of The Chosen is its willingness to do things differently. Rather than following established industry patterns, the production continues to experiment with new ways of telling the story and reaching audiences. That spirit of innovation has been present since the series first launched through crowdfunding, and it continues to shape every new season. Looking back at everything revealed so far, it becomes clear that Seasons 5 and 6 are closely connected. Season 5 prepares viewers emotionally for what is coming, while Season 6 carries the story into its darkest and most decisive moments. As Abe Bueno Jalad observed, every character reaches a breaking point as Jesus repeatedly tries to prepare his disciples for what lies ahead. Yet like the disciples recorded in the Gospels, they struggle to understand that these will be his final moments with them before the cross. that growing tension is expected to define the entire season, leading viewers step by step toward the crucifixion before the story ultimately continues with the hope of the resurrection in Season 7. Based on everything that has been shared, The Chosen Season 6 is shaping up to be the most ambitious, emotionally powerful, and spiritually significant chapter the series has attempted, inviting audiences not simply to watch the Passion of Christ, but to experience its weight with a depth never before explored by the show.